for protesting peacefully.
That was a scene in Austin earlier today after students at the University of Texas walked out of class to peacefully protest the ongoing war in Gaza. State and university police, some of whom were dressed in riot gear, descended onto the crowd, resulting in the violent clashes you see here. Dozens of student protests have taken place on college campuses across the country and around the world this past week. Protests sparked by the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where the death toll continues to rise amid reports of mass graves outside obliterated hospitals. At the center of all of this is an encampment-style protest currently on day 8 at Columbia University here in New York City. Today, Speaker Mike Johnson and some of his fellow Republicans traveled to Columbia's campus to speak out against allegations of anti-Semitism and to chastise the protesters.
My message to the students inside the encampment is go back to class and stop the nonsense. Stop wasting your parents' money, Congressman Lawler says. I think that's right.
Anti-Zionist Jews inside the camp that are celebrating Shabbat.
I don't know who's in that camp over there, but I will tell you that this is unacceptable, and the American people are demanding accountability for it.
Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who has been outspoken about these protests and the reason behind them. We're so happy to have her on the program. Thanks for joining me tonight, Congresswoman. First, let me just ask you, as a matter of sort of political strategy, do you see a connection between the fact that the far-right MAGA caucus is actively trying to oust Speaker Johnson, and today he went to Columbia to sort of maybe prove his far-right credentials?
No, I mean it's very much of a coincidence. This is a man who is holding on to his speakership. He knows he might be on the chopping block, and it is not surprising that he would go out to Columbia University and stir up really more anger and hate and endanger the lives of young people who are at the encampment at Columbia University.
Do you have a theory? I mean, I have a theory, but the way in which the right wing has almost even taken it out of the debate over free speech / anti-Semitism and just made this a war against quote unquote liberal elites. I have to call out what appears to be, I don't know, staggering hypocrisy on the part of Josh Hawley, who's calling for the National Guard to be called in to disperse the Columbia protests. The same Josh Hawley who was fist pumping in solidarity with January 6th rioters outside of the Capitol. I mean, how do you explain the sort of the discrepancy between the way they saw those individuals and the way they see these individuals?
I mean, it's a complete clown show. These people do not care about violent protests. They don't care about First Amendment. They care about their performing their political theater, which is what they most of the time do. These are people who supported insurrectionists on January 6th, who threatened my life and the lives of all of our colleagues, who threatened the peaceful transfer of governance. It is really astonishing that they want to be taken seriously today as they call for the National Guard to come in. This is also a group of people who are first to criticize other countries as authoritarians when they call in the military to crack down on peaceful protests and people who are speaking up for their rights, people who are standing up for human rights, people who are speaking up against their government utilizing their own resources, their tax dollars, to help in what now has been considered a genocide that Israel is carrying out against the people of Gaza. I want people to actually understand why these kids are risking their academics and their ability to stay in good standing at their universities. They are worried what it means to grow up in a world where people can watch 35 nearly 35,000 people will be killed, to watch, nearly 70% of them be children and women, to watch the destruction of 80% of infrastructure, to see a country withhold water, food, electricity, to starve people, and carry out, collective punishment. Israel's being hauled in front of the international courts and being accused of genocide. These kids don't want us to be complacent. They don't want their tax dollars to be complacent. And for the member who said, don't waste your parents' money, they don't want their parents' money to go in supporting a genocide that they oppose. And so I do believe that history is going to be on their side, and these members who think this is a political opportunity to turn the world against these people who are standing for a morally just right cause are going to be looked at and mocked in history.
I know that you recently visited an encampment at the University of Minnesota. Your daughter was expelled arrested and suspended from Barnard last week for being involved in the protests in that campus. Senator Tom Emmer said that your speech at that encampment solidifies the Democrat Party as the pro-terrorist party. What is your response to an accusation like that?
I can't consume Emmer's failures. He's not going to use me to get in good standing with his conference. This is probably one of the worst whips to exist in the history of Congress. What I did was stand in solidarity with young people who are anti-war, who don't want their resources being utilized for war. What Emmer does is stand with insurrectionists and believes that it is okay for his conference to visit January 6th insurrectionist prisoners and call them political dissidents. This whole conference is a joke, and nobody should take them seriously.
In the meantime, we are seeing widespread protests, outcry for what is happening over in Gaza. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, thank you again for your time and thoughts on this. Really appreciate it.
As we should. Thank you for having me.
We will be right back.